and welcome to the news. Our package tonight is an eclectic mix of developing stories, new perspectives on key issues surrounding national aspirations and the unending push and pull of daily life in Nigeria. We'll distill the views and host key interviews, all in the bid to give you every angle. Tonight, new minimum wage getting closer to the finish line as Senate passes 2024 appropriation bill for second reading.
I'm fulfilling one of my greatest promises of the campaign.
My money, my school. President Tinubu launches the Nigerian education loan portal. On infrastructure, we look at the incidences of building collapse by asking questions, not about building materials, but about regulations. In politics, court reinstates Philip Shaibu as Edo State Deputy Governor. However, that may not be the end of the story. Of course, we have our regular packages, especially reports on security, youth development, politics, culture, sports, reports from the international scene, and business. Benny Adams is standing by for that. And for now, let's run the main course together. After all, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. I'm Yen Ray John, and this is News Extra. Welcome. In line with the federal government's ambition of providing appropriate remuneration for workers, the Senate today granted expeditious consideration to the 2024 Appropriation Act Amendment Bill transmitted by President Bola Tinubu. National Assembly correspondent Lamiade reports that the amendment is to provide funding for the national minimum wage and key renewed hope capital projects omitted in the 2024 budget.
Provide the sum of 3,200 billion only for renewed hope infrastructure projects and other critical infrastructure projects to be undertaken across the country, and the sum of 3 trillion only to meet further recurrent expenditure.
Lawmakers were upbeat during debates on the general principles of the Appropriation Amendment Bill, as provisions in the bill are relevant to present demands.
All the proposals in this bill are laudable and will enhance the critical needs of the citizens of our dear country.
It is important for us to pass this amendment so that there will be money that will be enough to pay the minimum wage.
Instead of bringing supplementary appropriation bill, but the executive decided to amend the existing act to get monies, from one end to the other to take care of legacy projects. This is a wonderful thing, and of course, to also take care of the minimum wage issue.
The Finance Act 2024 Amendment Bill, which seeks to impose taxes on banks as revenue for government, also passed second reading. Senate has resolved to investigate building collapse in Nigeria as it adopts the motion from Senator Adiket's Plank on the recent building collapse in Jos Plateau State.
Bring to book anyone connected with putting up a shabby structures of the St. Academic School, Buzabuji, that collapsed and killed those innocent children in Plateau North Senatorial District.
I saw on television the rubbles of this particular building in Jos that collapsed and killed these children. I wept because even the columns were irregular.
Meanwhile, Senator Mohammed Tahir Mungunu has been appointed the Senate Majority Whip following removal of Senator Mohammed Ali Ndume as requested by the national leadership of the All Progressives Congress.
His uncouth and rabid outbursts against the governments before the international community and before the global community is not only harmful to the government's image alone, but also undermines the party's unity and cohesion.
It was in relation to unsubstantiated claims made by Senator Dume against the federal government during an interview on a television station. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
Meanwhile, an executive bill seeking to amend the 2024 Appropriation Act has scaled second reading at the House of Representatives. The bill contains President Tinubu's request for the House to approve 6.2 trillion naira from the Consolidated Revenue Fund for capital and recurrent expenditure in the 2024 fiscal year. National Assembly correspondent Mitari Ikme brings us details.
I have a message from the President.
Two executive bills read by the Speaker seek to amend the 2024 Appropriation Act and the Finance Act 2023
to provide the sum of 3 trillion 200 billion naira for renewed hope infrastructure projects and other critical infrastructure projects to be undertaken across the country, and 3 trillion naira to meet recurrent expenditure requirements necessary for the proper operation of the federal government expenditure.
Lawmakers referred the bills to the House Committee on Appropriation.
This is not supplementary, actually. It's called budget adjustments. So existing 2024 budget we are going to consider and amend so that those important critical projects can be executed.
The House passed the 2024 NDDC budget of 1.9 trillion naira.
The sum of 1 trillion naira has been allocated for ongoing and legacy projects to move the region forward.
Lawmakers also received Nigeria's 2024 Olympic and Paralympic contingent with a charge to go for gold and a donation.
With a sum of 100 million naira to support the team. Go to Paris with a clear mindset and determination to surpass our previous record.
Let this not be a one-off. Let this be a beginning conversation between the Ministry of Sport and the sports sector and the People's House.
Away from plenary at a public hearing on 5 bills, the House Committee on Commerce laments the absence of professional bodies to regulate critical economic sectors.
Every democratic dispensation is guided by laws, acts which helps in the smooth running of the government, thereby setting the rules to follow to ensure that citizens benefit maximally all that the government has in stock for them.
The committee says outdated laws will be repealed and reenacted to foster economic growth. From the National Assembly, Mitaire Ikben, NTA News.
Away from the National Assembly now, let's talk education, as the much expected student loan has effectively taken off as President Bola Tinubu launches the Nigeria Education Loan Fund, NEL Fund portal. At the launching, President Tinubu emphasized that his administration will continue to invest in education as a catalyst for general socio-economic development. State House correspondent Musbao Dan Wahab reports.
I'm fulfilling one of my greatest promises of the campaign.
President Tinubu following through on one of his campaign promises and to a logical conclusion. But it is the actual beginning of a potential life-changing program to give fair and transparent opportunity to the financially challenged Nigerian students. The president believes his various developmental ideas might be a distant score without quality education for the coming generations of Nigerians as the basis.
Without education, there is no development. Without education, you cannot even successfully conquer poverty, insecurity, and abuse in the society. Education is that light at the end of the tunnel. No matter how sluggish it moves, it will give you the light and the hope necessary to live a life. And we are investing in it. We don't want to try ignorance as alternative. We want education from foundation to the topmost level.
And from a campaign promise to an act, the dream is now a reality.
At this stage, may I ask if you have enough funding to disburse to the students who had applied? May I ask that question?
Your Excellency, you certainly may. At this stage, we have more than enough funding. When we start to promote this properly, we will probably need more. But right now, we can disperse to every single person who has applied. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much.
Within the first 2 months of the portal, about 103,000 students have so far applied for the loan from various public tertiary institutions, including universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. And now, in the first set, the scheme is taken off with about 33 billion naira. Representatives of selected institutions and students from across the 6 geopolitical zones now know the scheme is a reality.
Every student, every applicant can apply for 2 loans, one for their education and the other one for their upkeep. One is contingent on the other because you can't apply for the upkeep unless you've applied for the fees.
And as just exemplified with this scheme, President Tinubu says inclusiveness, which democracy is all about, will continue to be at the core of these policies and programs going forward. From the State House, Musbah and Wahab, NTA News.
Many thanks, Musbah, for the update. We're now being joined in the studio by the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Nigeria Education Loan Fund, NELFund, Akintunde Sawyer. Many thanks for joining us on News Extra tonight.
Thank you for having me here this evening.
All right. Can you explain the operationality of the Students' Loan Portal and when will it be effective?
Of course. So the operationality of the Student Loan Portal, actually it's already in operation. Effectively for the last 55 days, applicants have been able to go into the portal and actually put in their details to set up a registration and then go on to apply for the loan itself. What we witnessed today at the Villa was the President giving the go-ahead for us to begin to disburse the first set of loans that have been applied for and to ensure that we give the students what they need to be able to have unfettered access to classes and to have some sort of sustenance while they're there. So there are 2 stages of this, the fees themselves and the upkeep or the stipend, if you like. That was agreed today. The President signed it off completely, and so we can begin to disburse and give real value to the students. In 55 days, we've had somewhere close to 170,000 applications. No, I beg your pardon, registrations, and about 110,000 applications. The registrations come in first, they convert to applications, and then when they're verified and approved, it leads to disbursements. That's where we got to today. It's very exciting. It's very, very good for the development of our great nation.
Beautiful working today. Students who are yet to register and apply, can they still do that? And I heard you in that report talk about the fact that if you want to get upkeep, you must apply for the fees. Can you apply for the fees without the upkeep?
So first of all, the portal is open endlessly. People can continue to apply. This is the beginning of the process. And what we're trying to do is get as many people who are interested, who are eligible, who have the capacity to apply, and to encourage them to do that. So in terms of the upkeep, so you can apply for the fees only. If you don't want the upkeep, that's fine. But you can't apply for the upkeep without the fees. So that's why I said one is contingent on the other, but it's the fact that you can't apply for the upkeep alone. Because this is an education scheme, and we want to make sure that people are taking advantage to get the knowledge first, and then we'll support them with the upkeep if they need it.
All right. Students and eligible Nigerians may want to know if there is a cap to what you might be asking for.
So whether there's a cap to the loan, is that what you mean?
The data, whatever it is that you need for them to qualify.
Okay. Oh, thank you. That's a really great question. So the way that the portal works, the way the technology works is that the applicant comes in and provides us with different pieces of information. In the same way that you might perhaps go to an ATM and provide a card that fits the machine, put your PIN number in, it might ask you for some additional security questions, and then it draws on whatever data or balance, account balance you might have. For us, the account balance is the data that's been provided by the institutions that has been uploaded into our database, because when the student approaches the portal and puts in the data they need to put in, it matches that data, matric number, JAMB number, admission number, it matches that data with the data that the institution has provided us about the individual, matching those numbers I just described, and then the course, the institution itself that they're going to, the level of education that they're at, 100, 200, 300 level. Once those two things match, then there's a likelihood that they're going to get approval. Now, that automatically implies that if we don't get the data from the institutions to populate the database, it's like not having money in your bank account. If we don't get the data in, the match doesn't happen, and unfortunately the student cannot progress, because we need the institution to have the data in so we can confirm that that's where they're going. Two benefits, really, two types of benefits. One for the student, or two for the student, because they benefit from being able to go to the institution because we've paid 100% of their fees when they apply and they're successful. And the second is a stipend. For the institution, they get guaranteed payment, not in bits, but literally payment in full for that individual. And if you think about that across multiples of people, it puts real money into the institution from the NEL fund.
All right, thank you so much. Because of time, we would wrap up the conversation shortly. But is there any aspect of studentship that this loan does not cover?
Is there any
aspect of studentship, being a student in any government institution, that this loan does not cover?
Well, actually, as I was explaining, it covers the entire fee structure for the student. So anything related to the student being able to access classes, being able to access exams, being able to access tutorials, seminars.
Does it include research activities?
Research?
Yes.
Not unless it's part of the fee structure. So if the fee structure is that research is included, then of course it covers it. But if it's additional research, then unfortunately not. If it's ad hoc research, it doesn't at this stage. But it's a good question. It's something that we might want to look into at some point in the future. It covers upkeep. The upkeep obviously is money paid direct to the individual, and they then decide on how they want to spend that upkeep. But good question around the research. It's worth thinking about that one. But no, at this stage, if it's not.
Thank you very much, King Sawyer, for coming on News Extra tonight. We do appreciate you, and of course, looking forward to a lot of Nigerians benefiting from this scheme.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here, and I hope the students are listening and are beginning to apply if they haven't already. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So let's look at other issues now. As the Registrar, the National Examination Council, NECO, Professor Dantani Shishi has expressed satisfaction with the general conduct of the ongoing senior school certificate examination in the Southeast and South-South zones. Monitoring the conduct of the exercise in some schools in Enugu, Professor Wushishi revealed that over 1.3 million candidates are writing the examination nationwide. Susan Eze has the report.
To avail himself first-hand information about the conduct of the examination, the registrar is visiting schools in the Southeast. Having visited Abia, Imo, and Anambra states, the team is now in Enugu. The registrar applauded the level of seriousness and commitment he observed in the conduct of the examination, reiterating the council's zero tolerance for exam malpractice. NECO, he said, has put in place measures to make her examinations leak-proof.
Everything is going on fine. Delivery of sensitive and non-sensitive materials were done on time. And we do not stop at just proclamation of zero tolerance on examination malpractice. We take a number of measures.
All of them sworn and affidavit that once anybody is caught in exam malpractice, automatically the person will leave leave the hall.
Stating that NACO also conducts examinations outside the country, the registrar noted that the council is constantly evolving innovations to enhance the process. He expressed gladness that the Enugu State Smart School Initiative tallies with the NACO Tech agenda.
Enugu State they have gone far in the introduction of the smart school system, and they are going to key into our processes of examination. In fact, we have given them 2-year waiver for accreditation of our basic exam to enable them prepare their ground for the conduct of CBT.
According to the NACO registrar, the over 1.3 million enrollment in the 2024 SSCE internal examination is an improvement over the 1.2 million enrollments recorded in 2023. In Enugu, Susan Eze, NTA News.
Away from education matters now, the federal government has instructed the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development to only issue mining licenses on the basis of local value addition. Vice President Kashim Shettima gave the directive at the opening of the African Natural Resources and Energy Investment Summit in Abuja. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jibrila reports.
And for Africa to fully realize its full potential and meet global climate targets, we must put collaboration at the forefront of our collective national transition plans. It is indeed inspiring to see so many international dignitaries who have answered our call to gather here today in Abuja to engage in important discussions.
This summit, featuring Africa's natural resources accounting officers, aims to contribute to the economic growth of the continent through sustainable energy transition and tackling climate change.
This government is fully committed to creating an enabling business environment to attract investment that encourages value addition on solid minerals before they are exported. We recognize the losses incurred from exporting crude mineral commodities and understand that it is the time to change this narrative. By doing so, we aim to ensure that our teeming youth are actively engaged in economic activities, acquiring skills, and contributing to the nation's foreign exchange earnings.
The summit explores how Africa's resources can boost economic prosperity, empower marginalized communities, and break the cycle of debt, thereby funding transition plans and ushering in a greener Africa.
We are now saying we must all have one policy so that we can harness our value from the minerals. Of course, infrastructure development is very critical, and we really thank the governments. They've done their best. Unfortunately, minerals never happen in cities. They are found in rural areas. They need roads, they need electricity. So these are some of the enablers that we want to address here, and the biggest of them is capacity building.
The era of illegal mining in Nasarawa State have been reduced to a minimum. We are already profiling the artisanal miners, indigenous miners, provided empower them with resources and implement. We are doing that in conjunction with the Solid Mineral Development Fund.
The two-day summit also avails the opportunity for African leaders to establish a new ecosystem to foster participation in the mining sector, finance the transition and effective utilization of natural resources revenues, and maximize opportunities in the agricultural sector in Africa's sustainable development. From the State House, Abdurrahman Jibrila, NTA News.
Meanwhile, tackling climate change requires a huge transformation across all sectors. That is why the RAC Center is collaborating with environmentalists and the NYSC Community Development Service to intensify awareness on converting waste to wealth while adopting a workable framework to achieving this feat. Lynn Leneke reports that discussions on the Olusosun dump site in Lagos dominated the forum.
Climate change and its attendant effects was also top of the discussion table at this gathering of environmental scientists, x-raying its varied implications. The Olusosun dump site, for instance, which sits on a 41-hectare land, has served as the base for the collection of waste produced in Lagos, was described as one of the many causes of climate change. Despite the health hazards and air pollution from the site, experts say opportunities of creating waste to wealth are embedded therein.
One of the main problems with the site is the production of methane gas, which contributes to global warming. And you know, the smell, the odor from that is coming from the methane. So we'll start to extract the methane and use it to power produce energy for some of the businesses around that site.
From the young children in primary schools, when they begin to get ideas on how to create wealth from waste, then we're going somewhere.
Is to actually create awareness and sensitize and be more knowledgeable on what to do about environmental sustainability, to know what's happening even in the world, the fact that the way the climate is changing.
These environmental experts advocate waste management in form of renewable energy as a way of maintaining not only a cleaner, healthier environment, but provide sustainable livelihood.
I spend a lot of time in the company talking about digital inclusion, digital economy, digital transformation. But those three things will not happen without a sustainability thought behind it. So the fact that we are a data center, we are an energy-driven company, we are a high consumer in the space, we have to be part of sustainability objective while we drive digital transformation in Nigeria.
The interactive session with the theme, Driving Environmental Sustainability, Empowering Sustainable Future, remains critical to the development of the nation. In Lagos, Lynn Lenake, NTA News.
Let's head to the courtroom now as the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has ordered the reinstatement of former Edo State Deputy Governor Philip Shaibu to his former position as Deputy Governor of Edo State, several months after he was impeached on 8th April 2024 by the Edo State House of Assembly. Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court, Abuja, held that since Shaibu's impeachment did not follow due process or fair hearing, the Inspector General of Police is to restore his security details to him to enable him resume his duties as Deputy Governor. Stay in the courtroom. The Federal High Court, Abuja, has ordered that 2 legal practitioners representing former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello should be investigated for professional misconduct. The order followed the failure of Defense Counsel Adeola Adedipe, SAN, and Abdul Wahab Mohammed, SAN, to fulfill their promises to produce the defendant in court for trial. Yahaya Bello is facing trial for alleged embezzlement of 80 billion naira while serving as a governor of Kogi State from 2015. The court has also overruled Yahaya Bello's motion for stay of the proceedings pending when a notice of appeal he filed before the Court of Appeal would be heard and determined. Justice Mwite said the refusal is in line with the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, which seeks to prevent undue delay of criminal trials. The court's earlier order that Yahaya Bello be arrested to face trial still subsists. Now, let's head to Katsina State, where Governor Diko Umar Rada has convened a high-level meeting with top executives, legislators and local government officials to address the implications of the Supreme Court's ruling on local government autonomy. The meeting aimed to ensure a seamless implementation of the court's decision, which grants greater independence to local governments in managing their affairs. Awal Haliru reports.
Governor Rada announced the formation of a joint committee comprising representatives of the state executive, legislative arm and local governments to provide guidance on the implementation process.
The Supreme Court judgment has jettisoned a constitutional provision for a state and local government joint account on the basis of the state governors abuse the process. I will respectfully say that some of us try our best to manage our joint funds in collective approach. We are facing various socio-economic challenges coupled with insecurity in our frontline local governments.
The governor also presented a comprehensive breakdown of the joint local government account, revealing a total federal allocation of 130.1 billion naira from June 2023 to June 2024. The expenditure included salaries and allowances for local government staff, pensions and gratuities for retired employees, and security measures to ensure public safety. Others are operational costs for local government councils and agricultural development programs, including fertilizer and agrochemicals, among other numerous projects. The local government spent a total of 128 billion naira through the joint account, demonstrating their commitment to effective resource management and development.
As you are aware, we have various loans-based projects funded by multilateral organizations like the World Bank. We continue to seek more funding from other sources, including the African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank.
In another development, Governor Dukorada has officially transferred power to his deputy, Malam Farouk Lawal Jobe, as he embarks on a month-long vacation. Additionally, the governor received the approved 2024 supplementary budget from the State House of Assembly during the meeting. In Katsina, Awal Halaru, NTA News.
In other news, President Bola Tinubu has approved the appointment of Mrs. Didi Esther Wilson Jack, OON, as head of the Civil Service of the Federation with effect from August 14, 2024. Mrs. Wilson Jack was appointed as Federal Permanent Secretary in 2017 and has served in several ministries. The new appointee will take over from the incumbent head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Dr. Folashade Yemi Eson, CFR, who is due to retire on August 13, 2024. President Tinubu, while thanking the outgoing head of service for her stewardship, tasked the incoming head of service to discharge her duties with innovative flair, integrity, and stringent adherence to the extant rules and regulations of the Civil Service of the Federation. Now time for our first break. Stay with us. Welcome back. A group known as the National Progressive Coalition has called on Nigerians to continue to give maximum support to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his transformational programs. The group, made up of persons from various geopolitical zones, expressed confidence in the policies of the federal government and advised Nigerians to condemn and disregard any planned protest by a group it described as faceless. It highlighted the dangers of uncoordinated protest, especially now that President Bola Tinubu is working assiduously to address the nation's challenges.
Progressive coalition say no to protest. Nigeria is the giant of Africa and the leading nation in the continent. We must recognize our leadership role, the potentials endowment of our dear country. We must not allow miscreants to hijack the protests, to unleash mayhem to our dear country at these trying times. NSAS protest is still fresh in our mind and memory, which left behind wanton destruction, displacement, and agony. Many properties and lives were lost. We must give peace a chance to right the wrong.
Similarly, the coalition of concerned northern youths and students say its members should be counted out of the planned protest in Nigeria. During a briefing in Kano, national coordinator of the association, Jibril Sani Bello, appealed to Nigerians to shun the protests, considering its implication on the nation's economy. Awal Salisu has the details.
The news briefing by the coalition of concerned northern youth and students was coming amid the outcry for a nationwide protest against the economic situation in Nigeria. Although the members identified with Nigerians over the economic downturn in the country, they urged them to remain resolute as the situation did not warrant for a protest. The association urged youth to contribute to the nation building rather than amplifying issues that give Nigeria a negative image, as the masterminders of the planned protest are yet to be identified.
Administration of President Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu has been able to initiate a new program which is called the NEL Fund, which is aimed at finding a solution to students' financial problem. And this loan is an interest-free loan.
Members of the association expressed the fear that the protest may have an adverse effect on students and other Nigerians. In Kano, Awal Salisu, NTA News.
Critical stakeholders in Borno State at an all-inclusive meeting have declared the planned protests inimical to the fragile peace the citizens enjoy and will not therefore be part of such destructive move. The meeting was held at the Government House, Maiduguri. Mohammed Goni reports.
From inception in 1967 as headquarters of the northeastern state to date, Borno had gone through a lot of security-related challenges, including the Boko Haram insurgency. The leadership and the citizenry persevered and weathered the storm, and the state is on the path to sustain peace and development. This informed the decision of the state authorities to convene meeting of all critical stakeholders to deliberate on the implication of the alleged planned protest to the state's hard-earned peace.
These elements carry on chaos and discord, seeking to drain our collective efforts and exploit our vulnerabilities. Such manipulation could lead to violence, property destruction.
Governor Bagana Omar Azulum, who acknowledged the challenges the nation is passing through, however noted the effort being put in place by the federal authorities to provide succor to the citizenry. The governor also called on youth and other critical stakeholders to rally around the government to better the laws of the citizenry, assuring that his administration will not hesitate to implement the minimum wage that may be approved by relevant authorities. From the Deputy Governor, Shehu Borno, Speaker of the Borno State Assembly, Theatre Commander Operation Hadinkai, State Commissioner Police, the Christian Association of Nigeria, Nigerian Bar Association, Nigerian Labour Congress, Nigerian Union of Journalists, and other critical groups and associations reiterated that Borno should not be allowed to return to dark days of insurgency. In Maiduguri, Mohammed Goni, NTA News.
From the home of peace, we head to the center of learning, where Nigerian youths have been discouraged from taking part in any activity capable of destroying their country, as government is making efforts to address the socio-economic and other challenges facing the country. This formed part of the submissions of speakers at a symposium organized by the Alumni Faculty of Arts, Ahmadu Bello University chapter. Suraj Abdullahi reports.
Youth are not leaders of tomorrow. They are our leaders now. The world must get used to that idea.
These form the basis for this symposium, where speakers share constructive perspectives and insights with the youth to address them with passion for patriotism and their contribution to the national development. With the theme, Role of Youth in National Development, Economy, Security and Stability, guest speakers Dr. Daladi Bagu, former Director General of National Broadcasting Commission, and Habiba Muhammad, Director for Center for Girls Education Zaria, highlighted areas of achievements at both government and private sectors levels that the youth should leverage to enhance their well-being, discouraging them from being used as agents of underdevelopment to foment restiveness.
I think that we need to communicate more with the youths. We need to convince them that these things are possible, for the simple reason that in the past, whenever government makes promises, sometimes the promises are not fulfilled. We need to explain to them now that this is a different government that will fulfill those promises.
The presentation seems to have impacted on the youth gathered, as it turns out to be an opportunity to cross-fertilize ideas and share thoughts on how to prepare development amidst challenges. From Zaria, Suraj Abdullahi, NTA News.
All right, in the pride of the Sahel, the government has launched an aggressive campaign on ethical reorientation aimed at reawakening the consciousness of citizens on the need to upskill the entrenchment of moral values and principles on children and youths, who formed majority of the population. Yunusa Suleiman reports that critical stakeholders began the campaign by warning youths against taking part in the proposed nationwide protest as it negates the norms, values and tradition of the state.
Codenamed Operation Garan Hali, the ethical reorientation campaign was a deliberate move initiated by the Yobe state government to fight the growing concerns of moral decadence, mostly caused by poor parenting, decline in religious and cultural values, among other factors. This, Governor Mai Mala Buni says, are responsible for the increase in the rate of drug-induced crimes, as well as manifestation of alien attitudes among youth that are inimical to the social well-being.
Therefore becomes eminent for all stakeholders, including the government, traditional rulers, religious leaders, parents and guardians, to join hands with the security agencies in the war against illicit substances and drugs.
The ministry has designed a strategic master plan to commence public lectures and preaching, advocacy campaign, and youth engagement and mobilization and general awareness campaign, which will be done in collaboration and synergy with our major stakeholders.
Participants drawn from youth groups, religious organizations, and traditional institutions in the state were mentored on moral and cultural etiquettes from Islamic perspective through various paper presentations with the hope of stepping down knowledge gain to their respective communities. In the Matru, Yunusa Suleiman, NTA News.
Away from the planned protest now, let's look at some civil engineering issues as a recent building collapse in Jos, precisely on Friday last week, has been generating reactions and concerns from many quarters. The latest is the Nigerian Building and Road Research Institute challenging all regulatory agencies of government to be proactive at ensuring that proper monitoring and evaluation are done on all structures to avoid recurrence. Caleb Gochi reports.
The school building at Saints Academy collapsed precisely last week Friday amidst tension and confusion. The ugly situation attracted sympathy from residents and various organizations who made efforts to rescue victims of the incident. Since then, concerned citizens and authorities have been visiting the site to find out the cause of the collapse and to chart the way forward. At a media briefing in Jos, Director General of the Nigerian Building and Road Research Institute, NIBRI, Professor Samson Duna, said the institute is deeply concerned about the rate at which buildings collapse in the country, which also necessitated the setting up of an investigation committee.
When a building stays for long without a particular part shows sign of distress before it fails.
Chairman of the committee investigating the Saints Academy building collapse, Professor Frederick Job, promised to do all that is possible to unravel the cause of the collapse. Meanwhile, wife of Plateau State Governor Helen Mutfwang is challenging building contractors not to compromise quality to save lives. She was speaking during a visit to victims of school building collapse in various hospitals in Jos.
But it's quite devastating, and I think it's for the public and all those who are involved in construction one way or the other to learn a lesson from what's happened.
Wife of the governor paid condolence visit to the family of Suleiman Sule, who lost 2 of his children, and TJ Tagwai, who also lost 1 of his twins. This is what is left of the once bubbling school that housed hundreds of students until the unfortunate incident of Friday. Only God and only time can heal the broken hearts as a result of this.
Indeed, Caleb Gochi, of course, last Friday was a Black Friday in Jos, and incidents of collapsed buildings have become a recurring sad commentary on the Nigerian building and engineering sector. Here is Momso Damien Dati with a breakdown on some unfortunate statistics in recent times.
Thank you, Studio. The tragic collapse at Saint Academy just on Friday, which claimed 22 lives and left about 135 persons injured, has again drawn attention to the recurring incidents of buildings failing in Nigeria. A report by Building Collapse Prevention Guild says 135 building collapse incidents and not less than 26 deaths
have been recorded between 2022 and 2024. This year alone, 22 buildings have been reported to have collapsed from January 14 to July 2024. These statistics show that Lagos accounts for 27.27%, Abuja 18.18% of such incidents, while Ekiti and Plateau have both witnessed 9.09% of building collapses so far. Niger and Taraba states both account for 4.55%. Unhealthy numbers, you might say, but many believe proactive steps must be taken to reverse the trend. And that's it from here. Back to you in the studio for the continuation of News Extra.
Many thanks, Mom. So those figures give us reasons to worry. And so we have in the studio for an interview the current President, Sadiq Zubairu Abubakar. Many thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
Now, the incessant collapse of buildings is a serious national issue needing attention. What could be the problem? Is it dilapidated buildings, substandard buildings, or materials, or is it the lack of certified civil engineers?
I believe the major reasons are not far-fetched. I think we have a mixture of quite a lot of issues. One, you can basically say the perspective of what we call substandard materials that has to do with the standards that we have in this country in terms of undersize, reinforcement, for instance, and then the hike of cement, and generally, the building materials that are responsible. This is one. We have also what we call the design factors that has to do with maybe faulty designs, and then you go basically to the construction supervision itself. And then there are basically, I think, what we seems to find out generally is alteration of buildings. When you have a design of one-story building, you make them 5, 6, 7. Or a conversion of buildings, designs that are originally meant for residential, they now become commercial, or they become school, or you convert hotels to residential, and then increasing what you call the dead loads and what have you. Now, these are part of what we believe are responsible. And then you also talk about the quackery. The perspective of quackery, that is where we have not inadequacy of registered qualified professionals, because there are many professionals that are in the built environment. Beyond the engineers, we have the builders, we have the architects, we have the surveyors, and then quite a lot of them that are supposed to be registered, that are supposed to be regulated. The building industry has been dominated by quacks, and they are flourishing because of lack of effective legal and, if I may call it, regulatory framework to stem, this issue of quackery and the patronization of quackery by essentially the developers and the client who are going for cheap labor from unqualified professionals. Now, these are, I think, some of the key aspects. And of course, we may also say that we have dearth of laboratories, if I may also, point out that laboratories that are responsible for geotechnical and geophysical, investigation to establish the capability and carrying capacity of soils that you intend to put a structure on. We also have what we call a structural integrity test. Many of the laboratories that are supposed to be accredited are not accredited, and these services is being provided by quacks laboratories or by quack individuals, such that we don't have, if you like, a very robust system that establishes this structural integrity test, whether at a completion of a structure before occupation. Nigeria doesn't seem to have what we call integrity certification for a new building to be.
So many problems
quite a lot,
you're mentioning. What are the solutions, to solve this problem and, of course, save lives?
Of course, I may take the perspective of the regulation or the regulators. We have, for instance, the current, the carbon, the ACON, the surveyors, and what have you. Now, these actors that we have in the built environment need to sit down and harmonize and coordinate their actions. Similarly, what we have currently is we're having an uncoordinated action by the regulators within the built environment. And I think that is not healthy for the nation. This is one. Second, our materials. SON need a lot of assistance. We need to see how we can improve it to be able to stem the adulteration of building materials in terms of the manufacturing perspective. For instance, you go to market, you will see reinforced roads that are certified as 16 mm, for instance. When you measure them with a vernier caliper, you find that they're about 11, 12. And that's what we say. So the design specification doesn't seem to dovetail into the actual thing that we have during construction. And these are issues that we must recognize.
We need to address. Thank you very much. Because of time, we'll have to leave the conversation at this point, and we hope that the regulators would do the needful. Thank you very much, Sadiq Zubairu Abubakar, for joining us on News Extra tonight.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
All right, let's take a look at other issues now, as Nigeria is accelerating efforts at getting over 1 million petrol and diesel vehicles converted to compressed natural gas-powered vehicles in the next 3 years to ease pressure in the transportation sector. Ahead of this target, the Ministry of Labour and Employment has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Presidential Initiative on Compressed Natural Gas, CNG, and the National Institute of Transport Technology for the training of thousands of technicians on the conversion process, already ongoing across the country. Joseph Otsen has more.
To cushion the socio-economic impact occasioned by the removal of petrol subsidy, the federal government is encouraging the use of alternative compressed natural gas CNG-powered vehicles. Efforts are on ground to establish CNG conversion centers and filling stations across the country to support the transition.
But they also need people. You need technicians to be able to actually fit those vehicles. And we realized that we needed to work with the labor unions, especially MOMTAN and NATA, the operators, NURTW, RITIAN, and NATO.
Here, the Federal Ministry of Labour and Employment is signing a memorandum of understanding with the Presidential Initiative on Compressed Natural Gas and the National Institute of Transport Technology to build capacity of thousands of technicians to support the services.
We want to make sure that the extant mechanic and technician population around these areas also are trained in the heart of this. And then they can go ahead to train other people.
But we will continue to collaborate and make sure that at the end of the day, Nigerian workers will have the cheapest fare to get to work. And it will be an end of era where workers will come on Monday and sleep under the staircase or around the corner just to make sure they avoid transportation.
As at last year, the government says there were less than 7 conversion centers across the country. However, it has made huge progress with more than 121 certified CNG conversion centers in 2024. In Abuja, Joseph Otsen, NTA News.
Elsewhere, operational activities at Port Harcourt Refinery have suffered serious setbacks since Tuesday, the 16th of July, 2024, when placard-carrying Eleme community youths grounded activities by denying staff and contractors access to the facility. Lydia Sampson reports that the protest is still ongoing.
Eleme is one of the two host communities to Port Harcourt Refinery. A faction of Eleme community youths are protesting. They claim that Port Harcourt Refinery Company Limited has not fully complied with their demand for 40% representation of the total workforce for ongoing rehabilitation project, calling for complete dissolution of the Joint Community Relations Committee. The Joint Community Relations Committee is a committee comprising Port Harcourt Refinery Company Limited and representatives from the two host communities, Eleme and Okrika, for the management of host community-related matters. Officials say staff and contractors were all denied access to the facility, resulting in complete shutdown of all activities within Port Harcourt Refinery Company, both operational and rehabilitation activities, for 2 whole days. With parts of the refinery allegedly vandalized, they say the action has impacted on ongoing plant restreaming activities, adding that the plant's capacity to react to emergencies has been greatly diminished. Engagement between Port Harcourt Refinery Company management, government, security agencies, and the LMA youth has not yet yielded positive results. At present, Port Harcourt Refinery Company management is making efforts to resolve the protest while ensuring that the situation does not degenerate to communal clashes. Lydia Sampson, NTA News.
Now, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, has given officers and men of the Armed Forces 7 in the Niger Delta 2 weeks to end crude oil theft. It says, though President Bola Tinubu has given 6 months, he believes with a change of attitude, it is possible to end crude oil theft speedily and stop the continuous bleeding of the critical resources of the country. He is emphatic that anyone found culpable will not be spared. He made this known at a security stakeholders meeting with the Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Oil, Group Chief Executive Officer, NNPC Limited, security heads of operation in the area. The Chief of Defense Staff says meeting government target of 2.5 million barrels per day must be realized speedily. The meeting is ongoing behind closed doors as journalists await the outcome. The Nigerian Navy units across the nation's maritime domain have foiled a trafficking attempt rescuing 8 females aged 18 to 23 years in the operation. The Navy, in a statement, says operations from 9 to 13 July 2024 also led to the rescue of 2 drowning fishermen and the arrest of 8 male stowaways. Additionally, a sea robbery attempt was foiled within the same period. Given assurance that there is no hiding place for criminal elements in the maritime domain, the Nigerian Navy says there is only a tip of the iceberg, as it will sustain the tempo to keep Nigerian waters safe and secure for legitimate economic activities. Now time for a break. Please remain tuned. Welcome back. All year round, farming activities in Kano North Senatorial Zone and some parts of Jigawa State is coming back to life in the affected communities after so many years of abandoning irrigation sites on account of silting and typha grasses, which took over Gari Dam, a major source of water supply to irrigation sites. The good news is that the federal government has commenced dredging and desilting the dam for free flow of water and irrigation and fishing purposes. Yahanusa Hassan Barrow, who visited the project site, reports that more than 500 farming communities will benefit, as it is expected to cover more than 27-kilometer waterways.
Irrigation farming in these communities continued to decline as a result of tougher grasses and silting of Gari Dam and waterways along the dam, which prevented free flow of water to sites. Thousands of farmers resorted to rain-fed agriculture instead of all year-round farming activities. The resultant effect was low production of agricultural produce. With the ongoing effort to scale up food production to embrace the nation's food security, the federal government has mobilized to Gari Dam, one of the major irrigation dams in Kano and Jigawa states, to open it up for farmers to access water. Hurumi community in Makoda local government area is among the more than 500 farming communities to benefit from this gesture. The community prides itself in all year-round farming activities. However, for some time now, this has been gradually declining.
It will be a little better for the farmers because we have made some substantial preparations. We have acquired 2 number amphibian excavators which have been used to desal the rivers.
From your view and look, already our lands are out now. Everybody can continue their cultivation.
Ni kaina a bara inda na noma ya cinye shinkafar gurin na kashe kuɗi ya kai naira miliyan 2 a gurin amma ban samu komai a gurin ba bai wuce 150 ba.
This is coming at the time we need it.
Farin ciki a fuskata.
I am overwhelmed. I am so happy.
This is a cheering news not only to farmers like Yahuza and surrounding communities, but to the people in Kano and Jigawa state that farming activities around the famous Gari Dam will soon be back to life.
While farmers at Hurumi community are happy with the development of desilting the river around their farms, their children are having a field day in Kano. Yahana Sahasambaro, NTA News.
48,000 farmers from the 21 local government areas in Kebbi State have each received 3 free bags of fertilizers, pesticides and improved seedlings to boost food production in the state. The target is to beat the high cost of food in the country by producing more. Correspondent Abdul Jalil Mohammed Bawa reports.
Kebbi State, known for its significant contributions to rice and crop production in the country, has taken a stride towards enhancing the productivity of farmers in the state. Governor Nasir Idris, in recognition of the importance of agricultural development, launched the Kaurakiyes program aimed at boosting the morale of 48,000 farmers in the state. Under this initiative, each benefiting farmer received 3 sacks of fertilizers, improved seedlings, and pesticides free of charge. This effort seeks to improve yield and empower farmers to contribute meaningfully to the state economy.
We calculate the amount of this, it's even more than 200 or 300,000. For the Dr. Nasir Idris administration, we are very happy.
Food is scarce, and the only way that we can solve the problem of scarcity is by production.
Governor Idris believes that the bonfire yield will not only cushion the food crunch, but have a ripple effect which will address poverty, insecurity, and unemployment in the state and in the country at large.
I've directed the security agencies to put their eyes on ground and watch and do surveillance to ensure that nobody, no individual, no group of people found in the market selling this fertilizer.
The distribution, which has commenced, is being conducted by local government council and supervised by the Ministry of Agriculture. In Birnin Kebbi, Abdul Jalil Mohammed Bawa, NTA News.
Justice Bilkisu Gambo of the Niger State High Court has ordered the arrest of the managing directors of First Bank Nigeria PLC and United Bank of Africa, Adeshola Kazim Adeduton and Oliver Alauba, over alleged tax evasion. Mokhtar Wuwo reports that the State Revenue Service filed criminal cases against the duo.
The issuance of the bench warrants against the managing directors of the 2 commercial banks followed their refusal to appear in the court despite being summoned.
In the opinion of the court, and we agree with the court, the defendants were clearly in disobedience of the court, and we will not encourage any of our clients, any party to litigation, to disobey the court.
The ruling is the ruling of the court as the court pleases. It's always a legal proceedings. We know what to do next.
Justice Bilkisu Gambo, however, adjourned the cases to the 19th of September 2024 for the arraignment of the managing directors of First Bank Nigeria PLC and United Bank for Africa UBA. From the State Judiciary Complex, Mokhtar Wuwo, NTA News.
Let's talk business now. The businessman is here. Benny, what's the latest?
So much in the world of business. We start by telling you that the United States of America says Nigeria's economic reforms are on the right track and express readiness to support initiatives that promote trade and investment. This is as the U.S. delegation, led by Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Global Markets, Arun Venkataraman, visited Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Doris Anite. The meeting focused on a Trade and Investment Frameworks Agreement, TIFA, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, the Binational Commission, BNC, and the Commercial Investment Dialogue, the CDI, of which both parties emphasized the importance of diversifying Nigeria's exports, promoting innovation, and creating a conducive environment for businesses to thrive. And a look at the markets, investors lost 24.51 billion naira as the oil share index declined by 0.04%. They closed at 100,032.32 basis points. A total of 1.099 billion naira of shares in 8,720 deals, corresponding to a market value of 10.076 billion naira, were traded. Today's data shows 198% improvement in volume, 36% improvement in turnover, and 7% improvement in deals. The current market capitalization is 56.7 trillion naira. On the aggregates, 118 listed equities participated in trading, ending with 28 gainers and 15 losers. Jais Bank recorded the highest volume of traded shares, followed by Curtix and Zenith Bank on the third spot with 77.8 million shares. Well, that is business news. The news continues after this short break. Do stay with us.
Glad to have you back. More artifacts carted away during the invasion of Benin Kingdom in 1897 are on their way to the country as the Oba of Benin, Ewa II, receives 2 artifacts from the Museum of African Arts, University of Iowa, United States. Receiving the artifacts from the museum's curator, Corey Gundlach, the Oba called on other museums to follow suit. Jude Abugu has more.
The accompanying drums signaled the special nature of the day's event. Shortly, the august visitors were introduced to the revered monarch and the waiting chiefs, sons and daughters of Benin Kingdom. All the way from the University of Iowa, United States, the curator of the African Museum of Arts, Corey Gundlach, led a team to return 2 Benin artifacts stolen in 1897.
And while the University of Iowa, its National Museum of Art, has used these objects to teach thousands of students and others, museum visitors in Iowa, about the history of the Benin Kingdom.
Then came the moment all was waiting for. Corey Gundlach unveiled the 2 artifacts and handed them over to Oba of Benin. Jubilation and excitement followed. The royal father described the return of the 2 artifacts from the United States as historic.
You see our passport. It carries the mask, picture of the mask of India yesterday. That's to show you how important Benin culture is, even to the country.
The brass pack, armor, and the wooden hen in Yohoho will be among the artifacts on display at the Benin Royal Museum. In Benin, Jude Abugu, NTA News.
Traditional rulers have advocated the establishment of a high-level council to be replicated across states to coordinate, regulate and discipline members instead of allowing its institution to wallow into the misfortunes of external interference. This came to the fore during the NTA weekly flagship program, Tuesday Live. Correspondent Jume Yusuf reports.
The traditional institution has remained strategic in the colonial and post-colonial administrations and part of the instrument that shaped modern governance and add value to the society. These traditional rulers during Tuesday Live say, for the revered institution to regain its past glory, a high-level council should be established to govern its affairs and promote positive values and norms of the society.
No governor has that right, and it is against the law. But today it is done with abundant recklessness. Governors will just refuse to hear the advice of the Electoral College, neglect the entire advice of the Electoral College, appoint emirs of their choice or chiefs.
The question I always ask political orders, why do you come to our palaces when you campaign all the time? You don't need to come, bypass us. If you truly think you can do it, that's the only place the antenna can be picked.
The royal fathers say responsibilities of grassroots administration should partly be devoted to monarchs for participatory and engaging conversation that will promote security, education, and economy at the third tier of government.
This institution must be given a recognizable position in the Constitution and also assign some functions that will side by side in the act of governance, that is, in the at the table or decision-making table where the decision are being made, we should be part of it.
To specify the roles and functions of Nigerian traditional rulers in the Constitution.
You can't appoint somebody as a DG of National Boundary Commission that do not know the history of the homogeneous congeniality of people within a particular setting.
They say complementing government efforts in building a solid foundation for effective governance and national cohesion will always remain top-notch, as the nation's survival is at the center of their hearts.
The Federal Road Safety Corps is seeking collaboration and commitment of government at all levels towards strengthening safety of lives and property on the country's highways. This was during the Corps Marshal Shehu Mohammed's visit to the Ogun State Governor, Prince Dakpo Abiodun, as part of efforts to seek wider collaboration with stakeholders in both private and public sector. While applauding the governor's commitment to the safety of the lives and property, the court martial emphasized that the task of keeping Nigerian roads safe is a task that involves every citizen. Another break is due. Please stay with us.
The government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
Let's take a look at the foreign scene quickly now, as King Charles III has outlined Labour's first program for government in 15 years with promises of economic stability and tougher action on irregular immigration to improve relations with Europe, soured by Brexit. Frama Pine has details of this and more on the Global Update.
Delivered Labour's proposals from a golden throne in the House of Lords upper chamber after a carried procession from Buckingham Palace. The speech included more than 35 bills, including measures to enforce public spending rules and an independent assessment of future budgets.
And my ministers will introduce and will be brought forward to help the country achieve energy independence and unlock investment in energy infrastructure. My government is committed to making work pay and will legislate to introduce a new deal for working people. Measures will be brought forward to remove the exemption from value-added tax for private school fees. My government will strengthen its work with the devolved governments in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
Meanwhile, Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof has vowed to bring to justice those behind the downing of Malaysian Airlines flight MH17. Speaking at the 10th anniversary of the disaster at the Memorial Park near Schiphol Airport, where the ill-fated flight took off on July 17, 2014, He vowed that his administration will continue to fight for justice. The Boeing 777 jet was shot down by a Russian-made box surface-to-air missile over eastern Ukraine as it passed on a flight line towards Kuala Lumpur, killing all 298 people on board. A Dutch court in November 2022 sentenced 3 men in absentia to life imprisonment for their roles in bringing down the plane over separatist-held pro-Russian territory. From Apanyi, NTA News.
Paris 2024 Olympics countdown is next.
Welcome to the 2024 Olympics countdown. Now, Nigeria's best performance in the history of the Olympics remains their feat at the Atlanta 1996 Games, where they won 2 gold, 1 silver and 3 bronze medals. 28 years after, the country is yet to match that performance or go even further. Well, the 2024 Games now present another opportunity to do that, but have we done enough to deserve such an outing?
I do have my doubt about that. I know the Minister of Sports is working assiduously to see how we can really galvanize the system, but I don't know whether we have the athletes and the performance that can really get us to hit the podium.
You need to actually make sure that there is enough money for sports. Let them start early, let them get there early, let them prepare early, and at the end of the day, you get a good outing. Now, if we go to the Olympics and we don't come back with anything, who are we going to blame?
If we want to begin to think about winning, I'm thinking about being an Olympic country that wins gold medals all the time, we must understand that sports takes time, and we must give our administrators time to prepare, to groom, to nurture, and then before the maturation of those energies will manifest into gold medals.
Food for thought there. Well, as we build up to the Games, next time on the countdown, we will look at where Nigeria's medal hopes lie at the Games. That's the much you can take for now. I am Bade Adeleye.
Many thanks, Badi. Of course, that's News Extra tonight. Many thanks for being a part of it. Have a good night.